Dennis Martin was playing a game with other kids. They ran into the trees to hide. His father stood only a few feet away. Seconds later, the other kids came running back. Dennis didn't. His father went to get him. He was gone. This is what happened in the Great Smoky Mountains. It was supposed to be a game. Dennis Martin was 6 years old. He was camping with his family in the mountains. At one point, the children decided to play a trick. They would hide, then jump out to scare the adults. Dennis ran off, just a short distance away, close enough that his father knew exactly where he was. Seconds later, the other kids jumped out, laughing, running back. Dennis didn't. They called his name. Nothing. They walked to where he had been hiding. He wasn't there. This happened in 1969, inside the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. A place that feels safe because so many people visit it. But just a few steps off the trail, it changes. Dense forest, uneven ground, visibility drops fast. Still, Dennis hadn't gone far. He couldn't have. At first, the family searched on their own, calling his name, moving through the trees. Nothing. Then, the park was alerted. Search teams arrived. Within hours, it became massive. Hundreds of people, green berets, trained trackers. Dogs picked up his scent. For a moment, they followed it. Then, it stopped. Not faded, not lost over distance. Stopped. He didn't have time to get far. He didn't have time to hide. No one saw anyone come near him. So how does a child disappear that completely in seconds? There were reports that didn't line up. Some people said they heard a scream not nearby, deeper in the forest. Others claimed they saw movement between the trees. No one could confirm it, but one report stood out. A family camping in the area said they saw a man moving through the forest. He looked disoriented, unkempt, almost wild. And according to their account, he was carrying something large. Search teams looked into the sighting. They found nothing. No tracks, no evidence anyone had passed through. And like everything else in this case, it led nowhere. The report was never confirmed. Most wilderness disappearances follow a pattern. Someone gets turned around. They follow the wrong trail. They panic. They move downhill. They follow water, or they stay in one place, waiting to be found. Search teams are trained to look for those patterns. Trails, drainages, creeks, ridges, places a lost person would most likely go. But Dennis Martin's disappearance didn't follow that pattern. He wasn't an experienced hiker who chose the wrong route. He wasn't alone deep in the backcountry. He wasn't missing for hours before anyone noticed. He was 6 years old, playing near his family. And the search began almost immediately. That's what makes this case different. Not just that he disappeared, but before anyone had time to panic, before anyone had time to search, before anyone had time to understand he was gone. The simplest explanation is that Dennis wandered off. And in a place like the Smoky Mountains, that is possible. The forest is dense, the ground is uneven, and visibility can disappear in seconds. A child could take the wrong turn, step behind the wrong patch of brush, and vanish from view almost immediately. But that still leaves the hardest part, the timing. Dennis didn't vanish after hours alone. He vanished while people were nearby. Another theory is that he was taken. That would explain the speed. It would explain why searchers found so little. And it would make the strange witness report feel harder to ignore. But it creates another problem. No one saw anyone approach him. No one heard a struggle, and no evidence ever proved another person was involved. Some have wondered if an animal could have been involved. A bear, a large predator, something that could move quickly through the woods. But again, there were no clear signs, no trail, no confirmed remains, no evidence that led searchers to an animal. Then there are the theories that go further, that something else happened in those woods, something no one could account for. Something that doesn't fit neatly into the usual explanations. There is no proof of that, but the absence of proof has never made this case feel ordinary. Years later, Dennis Martin's disappearance became one of the cases often connected to missing 411, a pattern of disappearances where people vanish suddenly in remote terrain, and search efforts turn up less than expected. Some believe those cases point to something unusual. Others believe they are tragic wilderness accidents made stranger by missing information. But even without that label, Dennis Martin's case stands on its own because the question has never changed. How does a child disappear with people only feet away? The hardest part to explain is still the simplest. The search eventually ended, but for the Martin family, nothing ended. There was no body to bury, no clothing found in the brush, no confirmed trail, no final answer. Just one moment, replayed again and again. A child hiding during a game, a father standing nearby, the other children coming back, and Dennis not coming back with them. That is what makes this case so hard to leave behind. Not just the forest, not just the search, not just the theories that came later, but the smallness of the moment, the closeness of everyone around him, and the silence that followed. For everyone else, it became a mystery. For his family, it was a life split in two. Dennis Martin disappeared in 1969. He was 6 years old, 6 days away from his 7th birthday. In 2026, he would be 63 years old, turning 64 in June. But more than half a century later, there is still no confirmed answer. Not where he went, not what happened, not why no one heard anything. Only that one moment. He was there, and then he wasn't. And maybe that is why Dennis Martin's case is so hard to leave behind. Because the mystery is not how far he went. It is how little distance there was between safety and gone. This was the Hollow Record. Subscribe for the next case.